patron saint of teenagers.
Yeah.
And I have teenagers too. And
Right.
and I thought that I would be sort of like
She was the face of teenage life in the 1980s. Molly Ringwald starred in 3 John Hughes films that defined a generation: 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Pretty in Pink. At 18, she was one of the most famous young actresses in the world, the queen of the Brat Pack and Hughes's creative obsession. Then she made a decision that shocked everyone.
I did that when I was 10 years old. I started when I was, I started as a singer because my dad, Bob Ringwald's a jazz musician.
She walked away from John Hughes, the director who'd made her famous. And Hollywood made her pay for that decision by essentially ending her leading lady career. But here's what they don't tell you about Molly Ringwald's disappearance from Hollywood. Her exile wasn't just about bad career choices or fading relevance. It was punishment for a teenage girl daring to say no to a powerful man who believed he owned her image. So what really happened to Molly Ringwald?
I was like becoming who I didn't even know who I was at that point.
Why did she leave Hughes when he was the hottest director in Hollywood? How did the queen of 80s teen movies end up essentially exiled from American film? And why is she now criticizing the very movies that made her famous? The answer reveals the dark side of 80s teen cinema and what happens when a young actress chooses autonomy over a creator's obsession. Origins and discovery. Roseville, California, 1968. Molly Kathleen Ringwald was born into a show business family, though not the Hollywood kind. Her father, Bob Ringwald, was a blind jazz musician who'd founded the Fulton Street Jazz Band. Her mother, Adele, was a homemaker who supported her husband's musical career. The Ringwald household was filled with music, creativity, and the understanding that performance was work, not just glamour. Molly grew up watching her father's discipline, his professionalism, his commitment to craft. These lessons would serve her well, though not always in ways she expected. At age 5, Molly was already performing with her father's band. By 6, she'd recorded a jazz album called Molly Sings. This wasn't a pushy stage parent situation. Molly genuinely loved performing and had natural talent that her parents recognized and nurtured. Her transition to acting came through local theater. At 10, she landed a role in a production of Annie, playing the orphan Molly. The experience showed her that acting could be as satisfying as singing, and she began pursuing both seriously. By her early teens, Molly was working professionally in television. She appeared on shows like Different Strokes and The Facts of Life, doing the guest star circuit that many young actors use to build experience and exposure. She was good, natural, likable, with timing that seemed instinctive rather than coached. In 1982, at age 13, Molly was offered a regular role on The Facts of Life, the popular sitcom about girls at a boarding school. It should have been her big break, a steady job on a hit show that would make her a familiar face to millions of viewers. But after one season, as Molly Parker, she left the show. The official reason was creative differences, but the real story was more complex. Molly and her father, who managed her career, felt the role wasn't showcasing her abilities. They wanted more for her than being part of an ensemble on a sitcom. It was a risky move, leaving steady work to pursue uncertain opportunities. Then in 1983, director John Hughes was casting his directorial debut, 16 Candles. He was looking for a young actress who could carry an entire film about the humiliations and hopes of being 16 years old. Someone real, not a polished Hollywood teen. Hughes saw Molly's headshot and something clicked. He called her in to read and immediately knew he'd found his star. Molly at 15 had exactly what Hughes needed. She was pretty, but not intimidating. Talented, but still accessible. Young enough to be authentic, but skilled enough to carry a movie. 16 Candles was written specifically for Molly, with Hughes crafting the character of Samantha Baker around her personality, her vulnerabilities, her specific qualities as a performer. This creative partnership would define both their careers, but it would also create a dynamic that was far more complicated and problematic than anyone realized at the time. Brat Pack Queen and Hughes Partnership. 16 Candles premiered in 1984 and became an immediate cultural phenomenon. Teenagers saw themselves in Samantha Baker's humiliations, the forgotten birthday, the unrequited crush, the mortifying family moments. Molly's performance made these universal experiences feel personal and specific. The film grossed over $23 million, significant for a low-budget teen comedy. But more importantly, it connected with its audience in ways that transcended box office. Molly Ringwald became the girl every teenage viewer knew, or wanted to be, or wanted to date. She represented real teenage experience in ways that Hollywood rarely captured. John Hughes had found his muse, and he immediately began writing his next film with Molly in mind. The Breakfast Club, in 1985, put her in an ensemble with other young actors, but Molly, as Claire Standish, the princess, anchored the film's emotional journey from stereotype to authentic connection. The success of The Breakfast Club cemented Molly's status as the defining teen actress of her generation. The film grossed over $51 million and became a cultural touchstone that's still referenced and quoted decades later. Molly's performance showed range beyond 16 Candles. She could do comedy, drama, and the complicated space between. Then came Pretty in Pink in 1986, the film that represented the peak of the Hughes-Ringwald collaboration. Playing Andy Walsh, the working-class girl navigating romance across economic divides, Molly delivered her most nuanced performance yet. The film grossed over $40 million and generated endless debate about its ending. Should Andy have chosen Ducky or Blaine? By 18, Molly had starred in 3 films that defined 1980s teen cinema. She was on magazine covers, her fashion choices were copied by teenage girls across America, and she was earning significant money for someone so young. She was also completely identified with John Hughes's vision of teenage life. But there was a darker side to this success that Molly, as a teenager, couldn't fully recognize. Hughes's films were filled with sexual content involving teen characters. In 16 Candles, there's a scene involving date rape played for laughs, and Molly's character is constantly sexualized despite being only 16. In The Breakfast Club, there are inappropriate sexual discussions and situations. Hughes was obsessed with Molly in a way that went beyond normal director-actor relationships. He wrote constantly about her and for her, shaped his creative output around her specific qualities, and seemed to view her as both muse and project. For a teenage girl, this intense focus from a powerful older man was flattering but also confusing and potentially unhealthy. The industry treated Molly as Hughes's creation rather than her own person. Interviews focused on their collaboration, on how Hughes understood teenagers through her, on their special creative bond. Molly's own thoughts about her career, her choices, her future, were secondary to the narrative of Hughes the genius, and Molly the perfect vessel for his vision. Then Hughes wrote Some Kind of Wonderful, another teen romance that would have starred Molly if she'd accepted. Instead, she said no. She wanted to work with other directors, play different kinds of roles, be seen as an actress beyond Hughes's universe. At 18, she was trying to assert control over her career and image. Hughes was reportedly devastated by her refusal. He gave the role to another actress, and their professional relationship effectively ended. He would never write for her again, never cast her in another film. The creative partnership that had defined both their careers was over because Molly dared to want something different. Hollywood's response to Molly's independence was swift and brutal. The same industry that had celebrated her was suddenly uninterested. Directors didn't want to compete with Hughes's vision of her. Casting directors couldn't see her as anything but the Hughes teen icon. She'd bet everything on being more than one director's muse, and she was about to discover how high the price of independence could be. Hollywood Exile and Reinvention. The late 1980s should have been Molly's transition from teen star to adult actress, but every project seemed designed to prove she couldn't exist outside John Hughes's universe. For Keeps in 1988 cast her as a pregnant teenager dealing with early parenthood, teen issues without Hughes's sensibility. The film bombed. Fresh Horses, in 1988, reunited her with Pretty in Pink co-star Andrew McCarthy in what should have been a safe bet for audiences who loved them together. It failed at the box office and with critics. Betsy's Wedding in 1990 gave her a role in an Alan Alda ensemble comedy that went nowhere. The pattern was clear and devastating. Molly Ringwald couldn't open movies without John Hughes. The actress who'd been one of Hollywood's most bankable teens at 18 was essentially unemployable by 22. The roles dried up, the offers stopped coming, and the industry moved on to the next generation of young actresses. The rejection was personal and professional. Hollywood hadn't just decided she wasn't bankable, they'd decided to punish her for leaving Hughes. The message to other young actresses was clear. Don't bite the hand that makes you famous, even if that hand is controlling every aspect of your image and career. Molly made a decision that probably saved her. She left America entirely. In the early 1990s, she moved to Paris, France, escaping the Hollywood system that had rejected her for a culture that valued her differently. France embraced Molly in ways Hollywood never had. She was cast in French films, worked in French theater, and became genuinely bilingual. The French film industry didn't see her as a failed teen star or Hughes's discarded muse. They saw her as a talented actress with range and intelligence. Back in America, the 2000s and 2010s brought occasional opportunities. Character roles in independent films, TV guest appearances, projects that used her specific history and persona rather than asking her to be a conventional actress. She played mothers, teachers, women with pasts, meta-casting that acknowledged who she'd been while letting her be something different. The Secret Life of the American Teenager from 2008 to 2013 gave Molly steady TV work, playing the mother of a pregnant teen. The role was interesting in its self-awareness. The teen queen of the 80s now playing the parent dealing with contemporary teen issues. It wasn't prestigious, but it was visible and paid well. Then, Riverdale in 2017 cast her as Mary Andrews, Archie's mother. Again, the casting was meta. Molly Ringwald in an Archie comics adaptation, playing the parent generation. The show was a hit, and suddenly Molly was visible to a new generation who might have heard of her 80s films but hadn't actually seen them. But visibility brought something Molly hadn't anticipated, a reckoning with her own legacy. The Nuller Me Too movement was forcing Hollywood to confront its history of sexualizing, exploiting, and abusing young women. And Molly began looking at her John Hughes films through this new lens. In 2018, she published an essay examining the problematic elements of the films that made her famous. She discussed the date rape scene in 16 Candles that was played for laughs, the sexual harassment in The Breakfast Club, treated as comedy, the way teenage girls in Hughes films existed primarily as objects for male desire or rescue. So what really happened to Molly Ringwald? She chose independence from a powerful creator and spent decades paying the price, only to emerge with the clarity to critique the very films that made her an icon. The truth is, Molly's story is about the impossible position of being a teenage girl in 1980s Hollywood. John Hughes made her famous, but that fame came with strings. His control of her image, his obsessive creative focus on her, his treatment of teen sexuality on screen. When she tried to break free, the industry punished her. She proved you can outgrow your own iconography, critique your past while honoring it, and build a life that matters beyond the roles that made you famous. That might be more impressive than anything she did at 16. If you enjoyed this examination of teen stardom, creative control, and the courage to critique your own legacy, hit that subscribe button for more honest stories about Hollywood's complicated heroes. I'll see you in the next one.